Council meetings are long and boring. Wouldn't it be great if they're short and unboring? This is why I have invented the 5-minute meeting. All right, Ashland City Council meeting of May 24th. This is the second day of a 2-day budget meeting, plus some other stuff. It's a double header, so day 2 of 2. It starts with the public forum, and a lady whose husband didn't like PERS yesterday is back, and her husband still doesn't like PERS. And then the city manager says back to the strategic choices budget presentation. He said he had a fishbone diagram of all departments' priorities. We have 245 employees. There's a budgeted for that, not filled. They're not all filled yet. And 150 are union, 94 are non-union, and 30 or 40 of them are Parks and Rec, and those are all non-union. And 4 of 5 unions are negotiating contracts this year. The police, fire, IT, and administration have lots of employee turnover, which is expensive because we need to recruit and train new people. And this one says, so walk me through what that means. And the city manager goes, well, let's just continue with the presentation. I think it's going to help. And then he showed an excellent city organizational chart and showing how many employees are in each department and how many are frozen from this new hiring thing he did and how many are presently unfunded. And this one says, she goes, finance department looks like a nightmare. Bad. What's going on there? And the city finance lady says, oh, the entire utility billing department quit, so that's taking some time to repopulate. And the police has 4 frozen positions and 4 unfunded positions. And it says, hey, didn't that old council vote for an electric fee and a TOT, that's a occupancy, it's a hotel tax fee, specifically to hire 4 new cops? What happened to that? And the police chief said, oh yeah, we were all also going to get some marijuana tax and we're getting 0 of that. But COVID hit and then 4 cops quit. And we were approved for 32 cops, but we never got over 30. And then when the new budget cuts happened recently, we settled on 28. And so that's where we are. And this one says, hey, maybe we can use the hotel tourism funds to pay for a downtown cop because they're mostly tourism cops. And the finance lady said there are state rules, but some cities are lobbying to change that kind of thing. And the city manager said, we have some ideas, not in the coming slides, but police staffing is a critical issue. And then this one says, where is he? Oh, he goes, hey, don't forget about the regionalization plan for cops. And the city manager said, oh, combining cops with local parties and fire with local county looks like the way to go, so we need to move forward with that wisely. And then this one says, she goes, hey, and it's not just about money. Our partners in that need to be cool and compatible with Ashland. They can't just, we can't just save money. They need to be cool people, what we like. And then the city manager says, I agree. And at the fire department, the missing fire marshal is the biggest issue. And so, and there are so many empty positions all around in general that most employees are just doing extra work. And then this one says, I don't see plans to move a person from one department to another to fill vacancies. And the city manager goes, because rather than doing that officially, we are helping out across departments as needed. So people are just kind of shifting around and helping each other. That's good, right? And then this one says, oh, you just hired an HR person in-house. Can we advertise those jobs to employees in different departments instead of just like through their department? The city assistant said, we prefer in-house because they have certain skill sets. So if they don't have that skill set, then we need to go externally. So we do that. And then this one says, she goes, do we have any extra employees that are doing nothing? And the city manager goes, oh, well, everyone's working super hard, but we have opportunities to have contract workers, not full-time workers. So and also the IT department is way overworked, and they are just fixing personnel's computer problems, not working to fix the Ashland fiber network or updating operations. And this one says, are we safe from cyber crime and data breaches? And the city lady says, well, we do have risk. And then the general fund. There's another great graphic that came up, but most of the city revenue is a property tax and a marijuana tax, service fees, permits, grants, hotel tax, that's TOT or TLT, whatever you want. And that's all unrestricted and can be used for anything. But the restaurant tax, the food and beverage, is only for parks. And the top 3 uses of our money are for police, fire, and parks. And the rest is split among other departments. And the city manager says, Ashland has consciously chosen slow growth to retain a certain character with certain codes, and so that slows property tax income increases And 17% of city land, 17% of city land is untaxed, like SOU, city property, and school property. And that's 10% more than normal cities. And the three biggest problems we have is that we have no emergency fund, our emergency operations center doesn't exist, and we have too much employee turnover. So we need to focus on doing a few things well instead of a lot of things that never end up getting done. And this one says, is it true that since property tax only increases 3% per year and our city expenses are rising much faster, that's why we have this big budget deficit and we have to cut services? And the city manager goes, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then there's a lunch break. And so I come back from lunch, and the city manager says, the results of my 5% reduction I asked for from each department, he put up another great graphic. I mean, you know what? Check the YouTube description. I'm going to link all the good graphics that I like. There are some great links on there. It's just something super illuminating if you were curious. And then he said, so adding up the reductions that I asked for, that's 727,000 in reductions from all the different departments, and the freeze on hiring I asked for, that's going to save 789,000 in budget reductions for the freeze, and so that's a 1.5 million in budget savings. And then he had this new idea, epiphany. He goes, hey, I want to take the parks communication person, is like a 50% time person, a 0.5 FTEs, they like work half the time, and make them a city communication officer paid for by hotel tourism tax, and hopefully that person can make the city website suck less, because it sucks, and be more like Parks and Rec website, which is way better. And the Parks Commissioner pops in and says, Parks has given up the most in this process, and that's why we are going to put a bond measure on the ballot. I think they're going to put a bond measure on the ballot. Kind of what he alluded to. And he says, we don't agree to sharing our communication person, and so don't even think about that. She's ours. Classic Parks, always a team player. Oh, man. And then this one says, where is she? No, there she is. And she goes, what about city council cuts? And the city lady says, that's going to be $15,000 if councilors agree to pay 10% of their health insurance, just like the rest of the city employees. And also, we have $1.3 million in extra money right now because property taxes were way higher than expected, and hotel lodging taxes were way higher than expected. The last finance director was a huge sack of failure. That's not her saying that, that's me. But, oh my gosh, so the last finance director, big problems we're still solving. So anyway, back to what they said. So cuts of 1.5 million and then 1.3 million in extra money that came in means we're going to make up 2.3 million this year on the budget. And then the city manager says, now here are the things we need to do. We need to have an emergency operating center. That's $140K. And we need a diversity, inclusion, and equity study of city employees. That's $40K. And we need an IT investment. That's $40K. And we need emergency money just to have around. That's $237K. That's a good slush fund. And then we have a goal of $2 million in emergency reserves. And somehow they're going to get $2.6 million, maybe from the starting budget, and put it into the almost empty emergency reserve fund that we have. So anything that in the ending budget that is higher than the starting budget, most cities just take it and do stuff with it. Yet apparently Ashland just lets it sit there. So we might have 2.6 million extra at the end of this year's budget to put into an emergency reserve fund. I hope that's true. And don't forget the Parks is getting $2 million all to themselves from food and beverage tax. And then this one says, hey, despite the city manager says, I think the intention of that food and beverage ordinance was that money can be spent by Parks on anything, not just building. And this one says, she goes, and despite what, that's what she said. That's what she said. And then he said, what does the county and Medford do for an EOC manager? And the fire chief came up and said, the county has one full-time person and an assistant, and Medford has somebody shared by the hospital or something, and we definitely need to go the regional EOC route, Emergency Operating Center. And then the city manager says, this is just the beginning of a longer-term solution. And we should have a $20,000 welcoming initiative where we give equity, inclusion, and diversity training to private businesses, and $10,000 for a trail programs. And he said trail programs, and this one goes, he goes, adding mountain bikes to the trails is terrifying. And then this one said, did I mention I'm not a fan of counselors paying for our health insurance, basically paying to volunteer this crazy amount of time that we do. And then, city commissions. Parks, planning, and historical commissions are the only ones with independent discretion. This is city manager guy talking. And all the rest of the commissions should be combined and made ad hoc commissions. And this guy goes, oh yeah, well the tree commission reviews tree permits regularly, and city manager goes, make planning do it. And this one goes, wildfire commission is super helpful. The city manager goes, make them all volunteer helpers for the fire department. So they all fill out this form to vote on which commissions they'd like to be combined or turned into ad hoc, and that was turned in to somebody, and maybe later somebody will look at that. I don't know how that worked, but that was the end of that. And then the CIP, Capital Improvement Plan, the public works guy showed up and he said, we make all these master plans over the years, and we get them approved by council, but when the biennial budget is approved, that's when we start bidding the projects. And street funding relies a lot on grants, and we have a $3 million grant funding right now funding an upgrade to the tap water line. And in January, we presented 2 water treatment plant plans. An $8 million to upgrade the existing plant. $32 million to add oxygen algae upgrade to that old plant. Or $36 million to build a brand new plant. And he had a lot of charts showing that $36 million was less than $8 million if you add 100 years and subtract reality. And this one goes, are there grants out there? And the public works guy goes, oh yeah, WIPIA funding, Finance Authority, IFA has some small things, and grant funding is limited, but finance options are cheap. And then this one says, she goes, hey, plus we should constantly be afraid of floods, earthquakes, and landslides. Don't forget that. And then Public Works said, request approval of construction of a new wastewater outfall. This is about lowering the temperature of the wastewater into Bear Creek. And then this one says, I approve $1 million for some engineering and $2.5 million for the building. And it's passed 4-2. The usual suspects, 2 against. Yeah, they're 4-4. And then the finance lady said, now we need a supplemental budget to add $1.2 million to the budget to pay for this thing. And this one says, oh yeah, boy, this is us being reasonable and trustworthy. And at that point, this one had to leave. It's only been 5 hours, so don't blame her. But so it passed 4-1 instead. This is the one dissenter. And then so after 2 days and 9 hours of budget talks, they voted on none of the budget stuff, but they did vote to supplementally tack on $1.2 million for this never-ending wastewater project. I don't. Well, I don't know. End of meeting. You're welcome.